Gareth Southgate announced his latest England squad on Tuesday afternoon to much fanfare, intrigue, and indeed outrage. I ought to start by saying that no England manager has ever picked an England squad that has made everyone happy. There are a finite number of spots in an international squad, 23 to be exact, and by virtue of that fact, there are always going to be players who some people think ought to be included that miss out, and some players who some people feel ought not to have featured that make the cut. There's also a lot of shrieking every time an England squad is announced with regards to form, and whether a player has had a rough couple of months or has hit a real purple patch. Now, I'm aware that Gareth Southgate apparently said that he would select his England squads on form when he was first appointed as Sam Allardyce's successor, but if he did, that was a mistake on his part, and presumably he now understands that. The truth is that international squads and teams should never be picked solely on form. It would be chaos if they were. International managers and players only get a short amount of time together every year, and in order to implement tactical ideas, build partnerships on the pitch, and rapport off the pitch, some consistency is required. Germany, for example, did not drop Miroslav Klose or Lukas Podolski when they were experiencing barren spells in front of goal for their club sides. They stuck by them as they knew they'd turn up on the international stage, and so it proved. Now, obviously that is a little different if a period of poor form or excellent form continues over a substantial period of time, such as Joe Hart's struggles over the last few years. But I'm talking about fans who expect international managers to make rash knee-jerk decisions based on a couple of mistakes or a player scoring a hat-trick. That is just silliness. The biggest controversy perhaps in terms of Gareth Southgate's most recent squad announcement was the continued absence of Jack Grealish, and I must admit that I was surprised by the Villa captain's omission. I suspect James Maddison was left out of the squad due to his recent injury, leading to doubts about whether he would be fully fit for the upcoming internationals, and if Maddison was in there, I could somewhat understand leaving Grealish out, solely on the grounds that with Mason Mount and Phil Foden already in there, you would be left with 4 players all vying effectively for one very similar role in the starting 11. However, in Maddison's absence, I can't personally wrap my head around the decision to leave Jack Grealish out. I've seen some people mention off-field indiscretions, but I don't quite buy that, especially not when Kyle Walker and Harry Maguire both make the cut, or did in Maguire's case, in the original squad, before further developments in that story came to light and led to him being dropped. A fair few people have asked me for my views on England's best squad and starting 11, and in light of the recent response to Gareth Southgate's first England squad of 2020, ahead of the upcoming UEFA Nations League games against Iceland and Denmark, I thought I'd turn it into a quick video. It's worth noting, I'm picking my 11 and squad based upon the premise of everyone being fit, healthy, and not locked up in a jail cell in Mykonos. Goalkeeper: Dean Henderson. Barring a miracle, Jordan Pickford, Dean Henderson and Nick Pope appear to be England's 3 frontrunners between the sticks for the short to medium term future at least. I think Gareth Southgate will persist with Jordan Pickford for the foreseeable future, unless he suffers a heart-esque decline and is dropped at club level, but cases can be made for all 3. Jordan Pickford was excellent at the 2018 World Cup and has never let England down. Nick Pope is the most difficult to beat and the most adept in terms of the fundamentals of goalkeeping, and Dean Henderson is already a very talented Premier League goalkeeper at the age of 23. Whilst I think Gareth Southgate will stick with Jordan Pickford, and I think Nick Pope is the best goalkeeper, my choice would be Dean Henderson, and I'll try to explain why. Following Joe Hart's demise, Gareth Southgate had a decision to make with regards to his new number 1, and there was little to split the likes of Pickford, Pope and Butland, if you can recall at that time. I think he primarily chose Jordan Pickford because of his distribution, and I think that's the main reason he is reluctant to play Nick Pope. Dean Henderson at 23 should become England's best goalkeeper before too long, and he is already capable of playing in a team that likes to play out from the back in terms of his kicking and throwing, so I think he's the best long-term option as he's more suited to the way in which England want to play than Pope, and he's a better keeper than Pickford. Right back: Trent Alexander-Arnold. I promise you I won't ramble for that long in every position, and at right back, I'd obviously pick Trent Alexander-Arnold. Of course, England have a plethora of talent at right back, but Trent Alexander-Arnold's deliveries into the box are some of the best in world football, and given some of the attacking talent at England's disposal, there's no reason why Trent should be just as prolific in terms of assists with the 3 Lions as he is at club level. Centre back: Harry Maguire. A man in the headlines right now for all the wrong reasons, there's been a lot of talk about Harry Maguire's performances on the pitch this season, which is always likely to be the case with any player who transfers for £80 million. I don't think Harry Maguire represents value for money at that price point, but there's no doubt he has hugely improved Manchester United's defensive credentials, and I think he's England's best centre-back. Admittedly, I think centre-back is England's worst position, but with the right partner, I think Maguire can do a very capable job. A big, powerful centre-back who can be a real presence in both boxes, Maguire is also very comfortable with the ball at his feet, despite his size, and for that reason I can't see Gareth Southgate ever leaving him out of a big game when fit. Unless he's been arrested in Greece, of course, which led to him being kicked out of the current England squad whilst I was writing this script. Centre-back, Jack O'Connell. I'm sure someone in the comments will accuse me of being a football hipster, which seems to be the first weapon some YouTube commenters pull out when I state an opinion remotely outside of the ordinary. However, my first choice centre-back partner for Harry Maguire would be Jack O'Connell. Subscribers to this channel will know that I have long been a fan of Jack O'Connell's, pretty much ever since Chris Wilder got his hands on him, and I wasn't at all surprised to see how comfortably he took to life in the Premier League last season. I don't think O'Connell is England's second best centre-back, I think there are probably a couple of other centre-backs I put ahead of him, but I do believe he is England's best left-footed centre-back, ahead of Tyrone Mings, and with centre-backs, you need a strong partnership. Just like Maguire, O'Connell is well built and defensively solid, but also very happy to step out of defence and look to pick a slide pass. I'd be surprised if Gareth Southgate wasn't already taking a keen interest in him, but personally, I'd be starting the Sheffield United man. Left back, Ben Chilwell. For many years, left back was one of England's strongest positions, given the reliability of Ashley Cole, but that is no longer the case. Whilst Gareth Southgate has right backs coming out of his ears, he's not quite so spoilt for choice on the opposite flank. Nonetheless, I do think Ben Chilwell is England's outstanding left back, and he will be playing Champions League football next season, with the move to Chelsea looking very likely at the time of this recording, and most probably confirmed by the time this video comes out. Chilwell plays with great energy and athleticism, and whilst I'm not sure he's worth the £190,000 a week Chelsea are reported to have offered him, he's a solid option for England at left back, and he's still only 23. Holding midfield, Jordan Henderson. The most obvious starter for England in midfield, Jordan Henderson, has been absolutely superb for the last 3 years. He's never going to be as effective for England as he is for Liverpool, where the team is almost tailor-made for his approach play midfield, but he can still be a key man for Gareth Southgate. We know how well Henderson can combine with Trent Alexander-Arnold on the right side of midfield, he has a tremendous work rate, and he brings some much needed leadership and experience to a very youthful England squad, and particularly midfield. Holding midfield, Declan Rice. You may be thinking that two holding midfielders is a little defensive as a setup, but that isn't the case if it gives four forward players the ability to really express themselves, especially when this England team has two fullbacks who love to bomb forward, and indeed a couple of centre-backs who aren't afraid to overlap at times as well. Declan Rice is a really good footballer who looks better and better on every viewing, and should only improve, still aged only 21. Rice has already played over 100 games for West Ham and has won 7 caps for England, and I don't think it's impossible that he could one day reach a century of caps for the Three Lions. He'll have to start becoming a regular now to do so though, and it is my opinion that he should. Rice is an intelligent holding player who reads the game well, snuffs out opposition attacks before they can build up any real momentum, and he can play a bit as well. I'd never leave him out of a squad when fit, and I'd love to see him start alongside Henderson in order to accommodate a more attacking midfielder. Attacking midfield, Phil Foden. The most debatable position in this entire 11, I would sympathise with anyone who made the case for either James Maddison or Jack Grealish in attacking midfield, and whilst I think it'd be a tougher case to make, Mason Mount also certainly warrants an honourable mention. All 3 or 4 are very gifted players with different skill sets. I just think Foden has all the tools that England have been crying out for so long. Relentlessly positive, he is forever looking to receive the ball on the half turn, commit players, and play an incisive passing behind. I've spent the last few years being told that he's average and that I overrate him, but I think his form post-lockdown for Man City opened a few people's eyes to the youngster's real raw talent. Foden is only 20 years old, but he's already a majestic footballer. If he gets regular game time for Man City next season, I think he'll give Gareth Southgate no option but to make a place for him in his team. Foden was called up for the first time in Gareth Southgate's most recent squad, and it remains to be seen whether he will win his first senior cap. Right wing, Jadon Sancho. Bizarrely, I still don't think Gareth Southgate is completely convinced by Jadon Sancho, and I think if the Euros had taken place this summer, he would have opted for a front three of Rashford, Sterling and Kane, or another centre forward, depending upon Harry Kane's fitness. Whilst England have many starters who wouldn't start for other national teams, Jadon Sancho is someone who rarely starts for England, but would start for just about every other national team on earth. In fact, I'd go as far as to say every single one. Sancho is the best dribbler of the ball in the Bundesliga, he had the second most assists, trailing only the awe-inspiring Thomas Muller in Germany this season, and he also managed to score 20 goals. I think Sancho is majestic, and we ought not forget that he is still only 20. He could be a generational talent for England, and I think he should already be getting regular game time. Left wing, Raheem Sterling. Marcus Rashford is brilliant, and he will be an important player for England for many years to come, but I can't put him ahead of Raheem Sterling on the left flank. It's important to remember that all squads require rotation, and it is incredibly rare that everyone is fully fit and available. Rashford will play a big part for England over the next 10 years, but right now, Sancho and Sterling are undoubtedly Gareth Southgate's two best wide men as far as I'm concerned. It's somewhat amusing that some people feel as though Sterling has disappointed this season, despite the fact he has scored 31 goals from wide areas. That is a preposterous tally, and it represents his third consecutive season of improving his goals tally, as the 25-year-old becomes one of the most ruthless and effective wide players on the planet under Pep Guardiola. England have an absolute gem in Raheem Sterling, as should have been obvious for years, and we ought to appreciate him more. Centre forward, Harry Kane. England suddenly have no shortage of options at centre forward right now, but that doesn't change the fact that Harry Kane is just about the first name on the England team sheet when he is fully fit. 3 seasons ago, Kane scored 40 plus goals for Tottenham, something that is almost never seen within the English game. Since then, he has had a series of niggling injuries, which have forced him to somewhat adapt his game. He hasn't lost his ability to sniff out chances, his supreme confidence in front of goal, or his ability to cleanly strike a ball though, all of which have long and will continue to make him exceptionally prolific. Kane may have missed large parts of this season through injury, but he still ended the campaign with 24 goals, and in an injury-free season, I don't doubt that he could win yet another Premier League Golden Boot, and even compete for the European Golden Shoe. The rest of my 23-man England squad would consist of Nick Pope, Jordan Pickford, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Lewis Dunk, Joe Gomez, either Tyrone Mings or Kyle Walker, James Ward-Prowse, Mason Mount, Jack Grealish, James Maddison, Marcus Rashford, and Danny Ings. I still think that Callum Hudson-Odoi is a fine footballer, and I hope he gets the opportunity to prove it next season. But right now, I couldn't justify putting him in my final 23. One real gripe I have with Gareth Southgate, and as I said, I'm generally pretty sympathetic to the difficulties of his job, is his continued selection of Eric Dyer. Don't get me wrong, I was excited when Dyer first joined Spurs from Sporting Club de Portugal and broke into the England setup, but he has done so little for so long now that I can't wrap my head around how he is still in the squad. My best guess is versatility, since Dyer can cover at right back, centre back, and in midfield. But there's certainly no lack of right-backs or centre-backs in the England squad regardless, and I think there are a number of central and holding midfielders who are more deserving of a call-up and who could bring more of an extra dynamic to the England squad. So of all Gareth Southgate's selections in his most recent squad, that is the one I find most unusual. And personally, I would also have liked to have seen Calvin Phillips prove himself in the Premier League before earning senior international recognition. Call me old-fashioned, and it's not that I don't think Phillips is a talented player, I just think it's a tad premature to call someone up to the England squad before they've been tested against the best this country has to offer at club level. Anyhow, that's how I would set England up if I were the Three Lions boss, and that would be my 23-man squad, were I picking a team for the World Cup tomorrow with everyone at full fitness. I've no doubt some of you, nay most of you, will disagree with me, just as many people disagree with Gareth Southgate. But that's all part of the fun of it, and subscribers to the channel know that we love a bit of healthy discussion and debate here at HITC Sevens. Thank you all as ever for watching, you're all wonderful human beings, I suspect, especially those of you who subscribe and have notifications turned on for the channel. And even if you are a completely wretched human being, that at least shows that you have fine taste. Hit the like button to prove your exquisite taste in footballing YouTube content. If you enjoyed today's video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and feel free to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, where the username is just @HITC Sevens on both platforms.